The Pilgrim's Progress. Chapter 1. The Man with the Burden. Christian lived in a place called the City of Destruction, where life moved quickly and few people stopped to ask serious questions. Each morning he walked the crowded streets with everyone else, passing merchants calling out their prices and neighbors busy with their own plans. From the outside, Christian looked no different from any other man in the city. Inside, however, he felt restless. Late one evening, when the city grew quiet, Christian sat alone by a small lamp and opened a worn book. He had found it some time ago, and though he did not fully understand it, the words troubled him deeply. As he read, his heart began to pound. "These things are true," he whispered, running his finger along the page. "And they speak of judgment." As Christian rose from his chair, he felt a familiar weight press down on his shoulders. It was as if a heavy pack had been fastened to his back. No matter how he shifted or stretched, it would not come off. He had tried to ignore it before, telling himself it was only worry or imagination, but the burden grew heavier each day. When his wife noticed his troubled face, she asked, "Why do you sigh so often? What troubles you?" "I wish I could explain it clearly," Christian replied. "But I feel as though danger is coming, and I do not know how to escape it." That night, Christian could no longer remain indoors. He stepped outside and walked beyond the city gate, his heart racing with fear. As he stood there, unsure of where to go, a man with a serious expression approached him. "Why do you cry out like this?" the man asked. "Because I fear I am lost," Christian said. "What must I do?" The man introduced himself as Evangelist and pointed toward the far distance, where a faint light shone against the darkness. "Do you see that light?" Evangelist asked. "Yes," Christian answered. "Run toward it," Evangelist said. "Do not turn back, no matter who calls after you." Christian hesitated, thinking of his home and family. Then the weight on his back pressed down harder than ever before. With tears in his eyes and hope stirring in his heart, he began to run. Chapter 2. The Swamp of Fear. Christian ran eagerly at first, his eyes fixed on the distant light Evangelist had shown him. Though the road was narrow, it seemed clear enough, and his heart felt lighter simply from moving forward. For a while, he even forgot about the heavy burden on his back. Soon, however, the path began to change. The ground grew soft beneath his feet, and the air felt thick and damp. Christian slowed his pace and looked around. The road ahead dipped into a low, dark place where fog hung close to the ground. "I must be careful," he said to himself. Before he could turn back, his foot slipped. The earth gave way, and Christian suddenly found himself sinking into thick mud. He struggled to pull free, but each movement dragged him deeper. The burden on his back pressed him down, making it hard to breathe. "This is the end," Christian cried. "I cannot escape." A man named Pliable, who had followed Christian out of curiosity, stood at the edge of the swamp. "I thought you said this road led to life," Pliable called out. "It does," Christian gasped. "Please help me." But when Pliable saw the mud clinging to Christian's clothes and heard his cries, fear filled his heart. "I want no part of this journey," Pliable said. "I will return to comfort and safety." With that, he turned and hurried away. Christian struggled alone. His arms ached, and despair crept into his thoughts. Maybe he had been foolish to leave the city. Maybe the burden would never come off. Just then, a firm hand reached out and grasped his arm. "Give me your hand," a voice said. Christian looked up and saw a man named Help, standing on solid ground. With one strong pull, Help lifted Christian out of the swamp and set him safely on the path. "Why did you fall into this place?" Help asked. "I was afraid," Christian replied, "and I could not see the way clearly. This swamp is called the Slough of Despond," Help said. "Many who begin the journey fall here when fear and doubt overwhelm them." Christian wiped the mud from his face. "Will it always be like this?" "No," Help answered. "But you must keep your eyes on the path and your heart steady." Christian thanked him and continued forward. Though his clothes were stained and his legs weak, he walked on, determined not to stop again. Chapter 3. The Smooth Talker. After leaving the swamp behind, Christian walked more carefully. Each step felt heavy, but the road ahead looked dry and firm. For a time, he felt encouraged. Surely the worst part was over now. As he walked, a man approached him from the opposite direction. He was neatly dressed and wore a confident smile. "Good day," the man said. "You look weary, friend. Where are you headed in such a hurry?" "I am traveling toward the light," Christian replied. "I seek a place of safety and life." The man nodded thoughtfully. "A noble goal. My name is Worldly Wiseman, and I have helped many people improve their lives. Tell me, what troubles you?" Christian hesitated, then pointed over his shoulder. "This burden. It weighs me down day and night. I cannot remove it." Worldly Wiseman frowned sympathetically. "That is unfortunate. But I am surprised someone sent you down such a difficult road. There are far easier ways to deal with burdens like yours." Christian's eyes widened. "There are." "Of course," Worldly Wiseman replied smoothly. "Not far from here is a respectable village where wise and educated people live. They can teach you how to live better, feel better, and rid yourself of unnecessary fear. Why suffer when you can be comfortable?" "That does sound better," Christian said slowly. Worldly Wiseman pointed toward a tall hill rising in the distance. "Just follow that road. You will find help there." Thanking him, Christian turned and walked toward the hill. But as he drew closer, the ground slanted sharply upward. The burden on his back pressed down harder than ever before. Each step felt like a struggle. "I cannot climb this," Christian said, his voice shaking. Suddenly, the ground seemed to lean toward him, and fear filled his heart. He sank to his knees, crushed beneath the weight. "What have I done?" he whispered. At that moment, a familiar voice called out, "Christian, why have you left the path?" Christian looked up to see Evangelist standing before him, his face stern but not unkind. "A man told me this way would help," Christian said quietly. "Did his advice lead you closer to freedom?" Evangelist asked. Christian lowered his head. "No, only to fear." "That is because human wisdom cannot remove the burden," Evangelist said. "Return to the narrow gate and follow the true road." Ashamed but grateful, Christian turned back. Though the journey felt longer now, his heart felt clearer. This time, he resolved not to listen to smooth words again. Chapter 4. The Narrow Gate. Christian walked carefully as he returned to the right road, his heart heavy with regret, but steady with determination. He thought about the words of Worldly Wiseman, and felt ashamed that he had trusted advice that sounded pleasant instead of true. With each step, he reminded himself that the journey ahead required more than comfort. It required faith. At last, Christian saw a small gate standing beside the road. It was plain and narrow, easy to miss unless one was looking closely. Remembering Evangelist's words, Christian approached and knocked. "Who is there?" A voice called from inside. "It is I," Christian answered. "I have been told this is the way to life." The gate opened, and a grave but kind man stood before him. "Enter quickly," the man said. "Many dangers lie behind you." Christian stepped through, and the gate closed firmly behind him. The path inside was straight and clear, though still narrow. Christian felt both relieved and uncertain. He had entered, but he did not yet feel free. As he walked, the path led upward to a hill. At the top stood a simple cross. Christian slowed his steps, unsure of what would happen next. As he drew closer, something extraordinary occurred. The burden on his back began to loosen. Christian froze. Slowly, the weight slid from his shoulders and fell to the ground. It rolled down the hill and disappeared from sight. Christian stood still, hardly daring to breathe. "It is gone," he whispered. Tears filled his eyes as he knelt at the foot of the cross. For the first time in a long while, his back felt light and his heart felt free. "How can this be?" he said softly. 3 shining figures appeared and spoke gently to him. "Your burden is removed," one said. "You are forgiven." Another gave him new clothes to wear, clean and bright. The third placed a scroll into his hands. "Guard this carefully," he said. "You will need it when your journey ends." Christian stood, overwhelmed with gratitude. He bowed his head and promised to follow the path ahead faithfully. As he walked on, the road seemed brighter than before. Though challenges still awaited him, Christian now walked without the crushing weight that had once nearly stopped him. For the first time, he believed he truly could finish the journey. Chapter 5. Vanity Fair. Christian had not gone far beyond the hill when he met another traveler walking in the same direction. The man's face was open and thoughtful, and he greeted Christian warmly. "My name is Faithful," he said. "I too have left the city of destruction." Christian was glad for the company. As they walked together, they shared stories of their journeys. Faithful spoke of hardships he had faced and how close he had come to turning back. Christian listened carefully, encouraged to hear that he was not alone. The road soon led them to a loud and crowded town called Vanity Fair. Music echoed through the streets, and banners hung from every building. Merchants shouted eagerly, offering jewels, fine clothes, games, and every pleasure imaginable. "Welcome to Vanity Fair," people cried. "Buy what you like. Stay as long as you please." Christian and Faithful exchanged uneasy glances. "We must pass through," Christian said. "But we do not belong here." As they walked through the fair, they refused to buy anything. Their simple clothing and quiet ways drew attention. "Why will you not enjoy yourselves?" one man demanded. "We seek a greater country," Faithful replied calmly. The crowd grew angry. "These men insult our town," they shouted. Soon, Christian and Faithful were arrested and brought before a judge. Many false witnesses spoke against them, accusing them of being enemies of peace. Faithful was chosen to speak. "I have harmed no one," he said. "I only follow what is true." The judge frowned. "Truth has no place here," he declared. Christian watched helplessly as Faithful was condemned. Though afraid, Faithful did not waver. His voice remained steady, and his eyes were fixed on something far beyond the angry crowd. When it was over, Christian felt crushed with sorrow. "I have lost my friend," he said through tears. But as he looked up, he saw something amazing. Faithful was welcomed into glory, free from all suffering. "He has finished his race," Christian whispered. Soon after, Christian was released. Though his heart was heavy, he felt a new strength within him. Faithful's courage had left a mark on his soul. "I will honor him by finishing the journey," Christian said. As he left Vanity Fair behind, Christian walked on alone, but his steps were steady. He knew now that the road to the celestial city was worth any cost. Chapter 6. The Castle of Doubt. After leaving Vanity Fair, Christian felt both weary and thoughtful. The memory of Faithful stayed with him, especially the calm courage his friend had shown in the face of danger. Though Christian now walked alone, he felt as if Faithful's example walked beside him, urging him onward. Before long, Christian met another traveler on the road. His name was Hopeful. "I saw what happened to Faithful," Hopeful said quietly. "His courage showed me the truth of this path. I wish to walk with you." Christian welcomed him gladly, and together they continued the journey. Their conversations helped the miles pass more quickly, and for a time the road seemed smooth and pleasant. One afternoon, however, the path grew rough and uneven. A narrow trail branched off to the side, looking easier and more inviting. "This way looks safer," Hopeful said. Christian hesitated. "It does seem better than this rocky road." Trusting their own judgment, they stepped onto the new path. At first, it felt comfortable, but soon night fell, and the path led them straight to a tall, dark building. Before they could turn back, a terrible giant appeared. His name was Despair. "You are trespassing on my land," the giant roared. Christian and Hopeful were seized and thrown into a deep dungeon inside Doubting Castle. The air was cold, and no light reached them. "There is no escape," Despair said before locking the door. Days passed slowly. The giant returned often, filling their minds with fear. "You will never leave this place," he said. "You might as well give up." Christian felt his courage fade. "I fear he is right," he whispered. Hopeful refused to lose heart. "We must not forget what we know to be true," he said. "There is always hope." One morning, as Christian lay awake, a sudden thought came to him. "What a fool I have been," he said. "I carry a key with me called Promise." With trembling hands, Christian searched his pocket and pulled out the key. It fit perfectly into the dungeon door. The lock opened at once. They hurried through the castle and escaped before the giant could stop them. As the sun rose, they stood free once more. "We must be more watchful," Christian said. "Yes," Hopeful replied. "But even our failures cannot stop the journey, as long as we remember the promises we carry." Together, they returned to the right road, wiser and more determined than before. Chapter 7. The River Ahead. Christian and Hopeful walked on for many days after escaping Doubting Castle. The road was quieter now, and though it still rose and fell, it felt steady beneath their feet. Along the way, they spoke often of the lessons they had learned, reminding one another to stay watchful and to trust the promises they had been given. One morning, as the sun rose gently before them, Christian stopped walking. "Look," he said, pointing ahead. In the distance, beyond green fields and soft hills, the celestial city shone brighter than ever. Its walls glimmered like gold, and a warm light filled the air. "We are so close," Hopeful said, his voice full of joy. Christian smiled, but his joy faded as he noticed something else. Between them and the city lay a wide river. The water was deep and still, with no bridge in sight. "My heart trembles," Christian said. "I did not expect this. This is the final crossing," Hopeful replied gently. "We must go through it." They stepped into the river together. At first, the water reached only their ankles, and Christian felt relieved. But with each step, it rose higher. Soon it pressed against his chest, and fear rushed into his thoughts. "I am sinking," Christian cried. "I feel lost again. I fear I will never reach the city." Hopeful moved closer and held his arm. "Do not be afraid," he said. "Remember the promises. You are not alone." The water grew deeper, and Christian stumbled. For a moment, he could see nothing but darkness. "I cannot feel the ground," he said weakly. "Look up," Hopeful answered firmly. "The path is still beneath your feet." Christian took a trembling breath and lifted his eyes. Slowly, he felt solid ground again. The fear began to fade, replaced by peace he had never known before. With renewed strength, they continued forward. The river grew shallower with each step, until at last they climbed onto the far shore. Christian fell to his knees, overcome with relief. "It is finished," he said softly. "Yes," Hopeful replied, smiling. "The journey is nearly complete." Together, they stood and looked toward the celestial city, its gates standing open before them. The hardships of the road now felt distant, like a dream fading with the morning light. With grateful hearts, they walked on toward their true home. Chapter 8. The Celestial City. Christian and Hopeful walked slowly toward the city, hardly daring to believe that the journey was truly ending. The road was smooth now, and a sense of peace surrounded them. Every step felt lighter than the one before, as if the weariness of the long road was slipping away. As they approached the great gates of the Celestial City, they heard music rising in the air. It was unlike anything Christian had ever heard, both joyful and gentle at the same time. His heart swelled as he listened. "This is the place we have sought," Hopeful said softly. At the gate stood shining messengers. One of them raised a hand. "Have you the scroll given to you on your journey?" the messenger asked. Christian reached into his garment and carefully brought out the scroll he had guarded for so long. His hands trembled as he passed it forward. The messenger examined it, then smiled. "You may enter." At once, the gates swung open. A flood of light poured out, and the music grew louder and richer. Christian felt tears on his face, but they were tears of joy. "Welcome," a voice said warmly. "Welcome home." As Christian stepped inside, all pain, fear, and sorrow vanished. He felt whole in a way he never had before. The weight of past struggles no longer mattered. Only joy remained. Christian looked around in wonder. He saw countless people, each one filled with peace and happiness. Though the journey had been long and difficult, he now understood that every step had been worth it. Hopeful turned to him and smiled. "We have finished the race." "Yes," Christian replied. "And we have reached the end we hoped for." Trumpets sounded again, and Christian felt a deep sense of rest settle over him. The fears of the city of destruction were far behind him now. The trials of the road had shaped him, strengthened him, and led him home. As Christian walked deeper into the city, he knew that his journey had not been in vain. What began with fear and a heavy burden had ended in peace and everlasting joy. And so, Christian's pilgrimage was complete.